right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our Juneteenth edition of our E2E, Educate to Elevate. This is a webinar presented by Rapsodo, and it's a great opportunity for us to learn and grow as a sport and really talk about a lot of things, but specifically how we can best serve our Black coaches, increasing opportunity and diversity and access in our programs, and learn a little bit more about what that even means and what does it look like. And I'm thrilled to have a great group of coaches to guide us through this and give us insights and how we can put some things into action. So I'm going to let these coaches introduce themselves. I'm just going to go in the order that is on my screen. While they are introducing themselves, if there's a question you have, a topic you want to cover, go ahead and put that in the chat. If you put a question in on the registration form, I already have it and we will get to that, I promise. But if you have anything new, feel free to drop that in the chat. And panelists, you can get as engaged in the chat as you want to if the opportunity presents itself. But Kat, you are my first, top left on the screen. Go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kat Tarvin, head coach of North Carolina Central University. I'm at HBCU in Durham, North Carolina. And right now I'm actually in Austin, Texas, coaching with the Texas Smoke as the pitching coach.
Love that. Very cool. Thank you. Jesse, you are next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Jessie Scroggins. I just finished my second year at Texas Southern, but currently not affiliated with anyone anymore. So if you know anyone looking for a coach, I am available.
Kind of a good player back in her day. I mean, kind of did all right. Outstanding at Baylor. So don't brag on yourself a little bit there, Coach. Coach Jenkins, you're next.
Hello, everybody. My name is Melvin Jenkins. I'm the head coach at Tyler High School, formerly John Tyler, home of Earl Campbell in Tyler, Texas. My background, I was a football player in college at the University of Texas. And I kind of lucked into the bottom floor when Coach Clark started the program at UT and came in as a student assistant and kind of got in at the bottom and worked my way through. I've coached junior college, high school, lucked under Coach Jody Philpott at St. Edward's University and got in there on that level, NAIA to D2 level too. So proud to be here and have an opportunity to see and interact with so many people that I follow and keep track of and admire your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Same goes for you. Appreciate it having you here today as well. Coach Perry, you're next.
Hello. My name is Tyra Perry. I'm the head softball coach at the University of Illinois. I am going into my 9th season there and I'm continuously floored by just the ability of the NFCA to reach out and connect with everyone on all levels. So thank you guys for having me here today.
You are welcome. It's always our pleasure. And we are just really looking forward to getting into a lot of the discussion things that have presented themselves throughout the last couple of weeks as we've been talking about this. But a term that gets thrown around a lot, and panelists, I know you know this one's coming. And then after this, there's no script, so get ready. But the idea of DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, however you want to define that, can we break that down just for you? What does it mean to you when you hear someone talk about DEI? We're going to have you all answer this, but we'll go backwards. So Coach Perry, if you want to go first, you can lead us off and we'll kick it back around the horn.
Oh, I think it's super important, especially in today's climate where you see legislation being passed to exclude funding, to help people of color, obtain jobs and positions and information access, just in a way that is humane. So I think, for me, the focus is on letting people know that there are people of color out there that deserve an opportunity, that are qualified or have the ability to get information, be trained and become qualified. If they're not already qualified, find someone who has that ability, to work and that desire and teach them. So that's what that means to me.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Jenkins, how about you?
I agree with Coach Perry on a big chunk of that. To me, it means that if somebody has an interest and a desire in a position, they're going to get a fair opportunity to pursue it. And once again, the tie-in to Coach Perry was that if I or them don't have the skills already, if I have lateral skills that line up with it, like in other sports where people are given a chance without previous experience, I'm going to get an opportunity to step in and learn what needs to be learned to participate. As a head coach, when I'm looking for my staffs and everything, it also means not falling into the trap of only going by what's comfortable. It means looking for who does already have a skill set that would be a quality addition to what we're trying to do in our athletic department.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. Coach Scroggins, you're up.
Yeah, to kind of go off Coach Jenkins with comfortability, I think it goes a little bit beyond that and being beyond a statistic and just kind of having, a sprinkle here, a sprinkle there, because that's what is asked of you, and wanting to have people on staff because, like they said, that they are qualified and that you think that they can do a very good job and that they matter more than, meeting a quota, in my opinion.
Thank you, Coach. Kat, last but not least.
Yes, for myself, I have just really understanding people and who they are, having people be able to be free and be whoever they want to be, and who they are based off of, with no judgment, just an open, free zone, and everybody feels comfortable.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate those. Some of the questions that we received from the registration form, we're going to hit in really no particular order. But one I thought was really interesting was, how can we as coaches bring diversity and inclusion to our programs if the student body is not as open to it as we would like? So really, I love the fact that this coach is trying to be a leader in this space and just stuck, not really sure what to do next. So we will kick this around. Kat, let's have you go first, and then Coach Perry, Coach Jenkins, let's have you guys follow. Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, I think that really it matters on maybe bringing people in. So say everybody maybe looks the same, bringing somebody in to speak to your team. I know that we even have Jen Fry comes in and talks to us often, and she's a big name. So having somebody like her be able to come in and be from the outside looking in and tell everybody basically about themselves or what have you. But yeah, just feeling comfortable and being comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that you maybe don't know everything, and maybe there are different judgments. Everybody comes from different places, but really having set empathy skills and really understanding where everybody's coming from.
Love Jen Fry. We did a podcast with her a couple weeks ago. If you don't know who that is, check her out. The podcast was great. She's very cool. Tyra, your thoughts?
Very similar to Kat's. We're bringing different types of people in just to speak. We're also looking to tie in. Our campus has different houses. There's a for Black students, there's a house, Asian students. There's these different things on campus that we're looking to tie in. But I agree, just making sure that we show in a real time and real people, and expose our athletes to different sorts of lifestyles and different sorts of people.
Thank you. And Coach Jenkins.
I know it's cliche to keep saying I agree. Some of the things I've done is try to expose my kids with the high school level and then my college players to communities that they don't normally associate with, whether it's not associated with on the campus or when we traveled for trips, making it a point to do things that might be a little bit out of the norm for what that core demographic of kids at that school, students at that school were used to. I remember, for example, taking some kids to just to eat things culturally that were different from what they were used to, because the junior college was an extension of the geographic region, and they just didn't travel. You know, I had kids that had never seen a body of water bigger than a reservoir, and just going to the coast and then being exposed to the different populations of people and communities of people on the coast was a new thing to them. And so I try to put those things in. I try to make sure when I had the opportunity to bring in speakers that my kids might say that that's corny or that's not cool at first, but then once they get to meet real individuals that represent those concepts I was trying to expose them to, they really get a chance to grow up a lot. And, you know, we say a lot, you can't force something, but you can put something in proximity and let people get accustomed.
Absolutely. I love that. A totally different question that we had come through was on name, image, likeness. And Coach Perry, I'll let you start this one because you probably have the most experience in the NIL space on the day-to-day. But for our minority athletes, you know, what does the NIL space look like for those student athletes? And is there a way to best serve our student athletes in that capacity? And then Jesse, I'm gonna have you go next because you probably wish you would have had a shot at some NIL money when you were playing, right? So we'll let you go next, but Tyra, lead us off on that one.
Well, I actually reached out to our NIL director, Cameron Cox. We were one of the first to have someone on campus. He has a law degree that works specifically with our student athletes on NIL deals and just the ins and outs of how to secure taxes, you know, that surround your income, you know, all those things. Our AD is very innovative, and he kind of got ahead of things and hired Cam. So Cam speaks to every single person that we bring on campus, just about, you know, NIL, what it means, how to maximize your brand. And one of the first things he asks, you know, is, what do you like? You know, what are you interested in? And then once he figures that out, he starts to, you know, form, you know, ideas based on that person's particular interest, because you're more likely to, you know, become attractive or be more interested or an asset to a company if it's something that you have a genuine interest in. Now, in talking to him just about how it relates to minority athletes and maybe even a little bit about like softball specific, he had some pretty interesting feedback. He said basically it works the same as it does just out in the influencer world. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you want to speak on that. It tends to be more lending towards the blonde people, he said. So he said it's kind of like that. And he said the general market is that way as well. And he hasn't seen much of a difference, you know, as far as between the everyday market and the NIL market, as far as it just tends to be more deals given towards blondes.
It's crazy. I think we have so much to learn in that space, and especially how to assist our student athletes in that space. Jesse, when you think about your life as a student athlete, it wasn't that long ago, and NIL opportunities, what you see some friends dealing with. Any thoughts on the topic?
I think that is interesting. I think that when I think of NIL, I think of exposure. And as being a person who worked at an HBCU, obviously being a minority in the sport and then being at a university that is also a minority. And so it's a double whammy because you're as a Black person, you're in a non-dominant sport, and then you're at a school that's even further down the totem pole. So it's like you don't get the exposure, even if you do have these great kids, you know. And so everything comes down to exposure and, you know, being able to play on TV and, you know, doing well against those teams that you do play on TV. And so it's like, well, at Baylor, like it was great. And like I was lucky enough to have that opportunity to get the exposure that I wanted. Obviously, I wish that I could be playing now, but I just wish that minorities had more exposure to give themselves that opportunity. Because, you know, like talk about the transfer portal and like NIL deals, and I don't think that they essentially equate, because it's like she said, like you don't really see a difference. And, you know, most times when you see NIL deals, it's girls selling t-shirts, you know, like it's nothing major. Like, you know, in football, they have the jerseys, they have the names on the back of their jerseys and all this stuff, like the bobblehead. So I just wish that it comes down to exposure and resources. And I wish that minorities and even HBCUs, they just had a little bit more of that.
Well said. And I think so much of it is, you know, how do we help people understand the product? You know, we've watched several HBCUs that have extremely talented teams. Kat's team, of course, included in that. And, you know, watching them on some ESPN games this year was extremely exciting. That was a lot of fun, you know, to see. But being able to get that out there, I think, is so important, and continuing to find that space and a way to do that. You know, one question that we got, and Melvin, you're getting pigeonholed on this one, buddy, and I'm sorry, but one question that we got specifically was for our Black male coaches. How do we identify and retain and promote and grow, you know, our coaches who didn't play in softball probably, and be able to include that specific demographic in the coaching world?
Thanks. I was trying to dodge that one. No,
you weren't dodging that one.
No, I think it's at this level, there's got to be access to those manager positions in college, access to the travel ball, you know, give a call to that baseball player, because typically with your Black male athletes, what's going to happen when they're really good in baseball, they're gonna flame, and if they flame out, everybody just forgets about baseball in their past till they get a call maybe for a high school job. That's about it. Instead of being called in to be a hitting coach, to work with, you know, with a club or a high school or a college as a hitting coach, which I see a lot of males, period, using that as a step when they started off in other sports. Myself, like I said, I lucked out in a program starting from scratch at my school, you know, as I was coming into senior year, and having friends in the women's athletic department so that they put in a good word for me, you know, of my trustworthiness, of my willingness to do it with nothing expected. And to be honest, that's how it started for me and a lot of other Black male coaches I know. No pay, a lot of volunteering to do the stuff that our head coach didn't want to do, so that we could show the things that we could do that they couldn't do, and then try to receive some recognition later, and then immersing yourself, letting other guys know that, hey, you could look into this instead of being the lowest man on the totem pole with football. That if you work well with the female athletes, if you're pushing, that your second sport or your primary sport could become softball, and it not be a throwaway. You know, I'm rebuilding the program right now, and a lot of it's been, we're typically a football, basketball, girls track school. And sometimes it means taking jobs like this where we have to do the bricklaying. So I'm doing middle school ball. I'm out in the community working with Little League, giving up my weekends, giving up nights. So we got to let it be known that the opportunities are there. And then we got to keep it full circle. I made it an adamant point when I was on the college level to hire my ex-players, and to not lock that into only my ex-Black players, but my Latina and white players too, so that people knew I really was seeking to walk what I was talking, and that I didn't want to be the token, like Coach Scroggins said. I wanted to be somebody who was trying to seek prominence in the position and be a good coach. But we got to make it known. I can bet you money that most young Black males that would make good women's coaches would not push toward women's athletics at all, or girls to athletics at all, because the move is so heavy toward football and basketball as those things have gotten more and more popular. Even the NIL you mentioned, my thing with the NIL, looking at it as ex-football players, so much of it's not even representing anything with your name, image, likeness. It's just paying somebody to play. And that's not right to me, you know, because I think there's a young lady in Oklahoma who's got an NIL high school deal with a bat company and a bat bags and stuff like that. My state is not pro NIL. Texas is not pro NIL for high school, but I would love to see those kind of things tie in for our female student athletes. But back to the main question, letting young male coaches coming out of school, coming off of their playing careers, know that you're a good guy who knows what's going on and you're willing to learn. My involvement with NFCA, going to my first convention, sit there, shut up, you know, listen to Dr. Joanne Graff, you know, talk and listen, and being blessed to have a chance to meet Chris Malvo, who was a manager, because it was so hard to see somebody who was a manager, and him get me into working Aggie camp, things like that, where we've got to climb the ladder, but we got to know that there's a crack or an opening for us to get into so that us guys can keep doing it. I see us shrinking more and more away. I like the increase in our Black female coaches. I love it. That's why I keep hiring my ex-players. But I would like to not see myself disappear either, you know, out of the whole lens, the cornucopia, or actually kaleidoscope of the coaching world.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many benefits to a diverse staff, and there's a lot of ways to have a diverse staff, and it's not just, you know, limited to one demographic. Absolutely. You know, Kat, I'm going to come to you on this one, and then Jesse, will come to you second. When a coach is coaching a program and all the players on the team are Caucasian, they don't have a Black student athlete on their team, what are ways they can promote inclusion, or what are some ways that those coaches can, you know, continue to help educate their student athletes on just the benefits and the need for diversity when it seems like they might be, you know, preaching something they're not practicing or haven't been able to do yet?
For one, when it is an all white team or what have you, I sometimes look at the coach first, because it's kind of shame on you based off you recruit what you know, you recruit what you're comfortable talking to, you recruit basically the person that sometimes looks like you, and that's what you're comfortable with. So you were uncomfortable to have that strange recruiting call or strange whatever the case may have been, and now your whole team looks like you because that's what you're comfortable with. And then you expect them to be able to branch out and be, you know, open to diversity and inclusion when really you're not open to diversity and inclusion. And so I definitely think it starts with the head coach. It does start with whoever's doing the recruiting and what they're comfortable with. And then if there is the token Black girl or the one Black girl, kind of not, you know, meeting her at where she is and trying to understand her better, and not just your way and the only way and different things like that, just having a more open lens to it. But I definitely would say that if the team is all white, just really doing a better job recruiting for yourself, one, and then being able to take them maybe to a different community, how Coach Jenkins said, like have them, put them in an uncomfortable space, you and yourself and your team in an uncomfortable space where maybe you're working with the travel ball team that's all Black or whatever the case may be. But being okay, I've said this before, but being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to brush past things that are uncomfortable to you and figuring it out that way.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Scroggins, thoughts?
I definitely agree. I think that it starts with education, because like she says, you recruit what you know, and though there are those token Black girls on teams, even still, they're very uneducated on what those Black girls are like. And so ignorance is bliss. And that's where we have, you know, the microaggressions and everything else. And so before wanting to recruit those token Black girls or going into those communities, are you educating yourself on those Black, you know, those Black players or Black people in general? And so I would say educate yourself, learn about them, and start small. Like, you know, diversity looks different for everyone. And so we are diverse in many different ways. And so start there. Like, what does diversity look like to you? And how do you find ways to include yourself in different spaces? And start there, you know, baby steps work something big. And that way, you know, when you do have someone that doesn't look like you, you're a little bit more aware, you're a little bit more educated, and you're able to move in a forward manner, in a positive manner, instead of being in those spaces, but we're not making any progress because you're still having those microaggressions, or you're still not understanding what this person is like.
Thank you, Coach. I think this is a really important question. Let's keep going with it. Coach Perry, anything you want to throw in here?
Yes, kind of piggybacking off of some of the things that Jesse said. When you look and you add, you have to have a plan. You know, and I'm at a PWI. So, you know, as I mentioned before, I realized that there is, you know, a Black student union, you know, so just making sure that, you know, that there are places and spaces for this, you know, you become more diverse, great. You bring people into your space, great. But, you know, understand their needs and their differences and make sure that you're ready to coach them and that you're showing them resources. I would be natural about it. You know, I wouldn't say, hey, here's a list of all the beauty salons. You know, I know your hair is different, blah, blah, blah. You know, especially if I'm a white person, I maybe wouldn't be that, you know, I don't know. I don't think I would do that, but I would have a list. I would have some knowledge just in case, you know, it came up naturally. I was asked, you know, maybe churches, you know, in the area, you know, different things of that nature. Just maybe have a list, have some knowledge, you know, and be really intentional about it.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Jenkins, anything you want to add on this one?
I love those responses so far. I know when I was coaching junior college guys, one of the big things I looked at was making an effort, whether I was coaching in Kansas, where diversity, even with Latin players, was minimal. I tried to make the effort to get girls that were from a similar background or demographic, because we as different people are everywhere. So if you're bringing like, for example, a young lady up to Kansas from Houston, okay, I acknowledge that the fact bringing a young lady that's Black and a young lady that's Latina up is different, but they're going to have some shared things too. And if I lock on to the things that are systematic in their upbringing, in their community, and try to match that with the other players on the team, you do a better job of having a team that has things to lock in together. You know, I was at school when we had a dance, you know, there's a lot of country music mixed in, you know, with hip hop music. And and by say kids, these are college students participating. Well, if you being where I am right now in East Texas, it's not uncommon to see Black girls with jeans and boots. You know, they may not be, you know, representing it the same way as a kid from, you know, Beaumont. But so there's some core things that are tied in there together. So I'm trying to put teams together. I'm trying to purposely make sure I don't go away with one demographic or another, but I'm trying with one color or another, but I'm trying to make sure the demographics are similar so that they can thrive where the school is too. If you're in a rural setting, you need kids who have the right mindset, you know, to be at a rural school where the weekend activities, the social activities are going to be different than if you come from downtown Chicago, or if you're an excellent athlete, but you come from Tucson, Arizona, or Phoenix, Arizona. So keeping those things in mind so that you don't have a tokenized team. You just have a team with players that fit your model, but they're just from different places. To me, has been a better fit on that. But I know with high schools, we still deal with stupid things like there are places that are majority one color or another still in the state of Texas. Schools that are 100% or close to 100%. But if you try to wrap the things that are common by region, I found we can get around it, and you can stop the microaggressions a lot, because if you get 10 kids from the Houston area, there's part of Houston woven into them that is shared, and then you can work together on getting the things that are stereotypically negative out of the mix. But you got to acknowledge them. I don't always say it's acknowledging, the aggression is acknowledging the person. And when people get to know the person, they're less likely, they're more empathetic, as Coach Perry said, and less likely to say something that's based on sympathy. And so you get to know each other better. So.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. Tyra, I'm going to come back to you on this next question, because you mentioned earlier, if you're going to be proactive, you're going to take an initiative to create a diverse opportunity for your program, whether that's in your coaching staff, your student athletes, you better have a plan. And so I thought this next question was a good one. It was, what are some of the difficulties of managing a diverse staff that we may not be aware of? And I think right now there's a lot of hiring opportunities. We know Jesse's looking, so if you got a spot, you'd be thinking about her. There's a lot of hiring opportunities to bring in someone who may be completely different from anyone else on your staff. Can you think of some ways that you might have difficulties that you don't anticipate, and how coaches can work through that?
I do think it could be very simple, especially if you realize that you're in the people business, and if you're getting to know that person and looking to make sure that you're treating that, diverse part of your staff as a person, I think you're going to be okay. But I think you do have to be open to where, hey, everything that I've experienced in my life, or every viewpoint that I have, may be, a different viewpoint than this diverse person on my staff. They may have had a different life. They may not see things the same. So you have to be open to that part. But if you really dig deep into, this is a good human, this person knows their craft, and note that there may be a few points here and there where you may see things differently. I think if you can do that, I think you have a shot at having a great opportunity. And diversity in your staff can also help facilitate diversity on your team.
100%. Thank you. Coach Tarvin, how about you? Thoughts on things to maybe anticipate or a plan to have in place?
Sorry, you've been calling me Kat the whole time. So when you say Coach Tarvin, I was like, is she talking?
Who this? Yeah.
I'm like, is somebody else? No. I took it a little bit different, whereas with our players, I feel like all players, I feel like their majority haven't been coached by a Black woman. And they probably have been coached by, whether it's a white male or even whoever they've been coached by. I think that it has been really hard when they first get there. It's almost like they're extremely afraid. And there's this like sense of, okay, mad Black woman, and who, they think that that's going on and all of this. And then once you finally they get past the fearful side of it, they're on the, okay, well, she really wants the best for me. Like I feel like I mother my players a lot, but she really wants the best for me. And then there's this, oh my gosh, I have to do well because she wants the best for me. And so they put that pressure on them as well. So I think that just based off of it, there's levels to it, and just how Coach Perry said, just really understanding and being empathetic to the players and to really anybody that you do bring on. Like bringing in Jamie Hoover brought a whole different perspective to our girls as well, just because they not only in awe of Jamie Hoover, right, but they're still, getting it from a Black woman and hearing it a different perspective. We don't all think the exact same. So hearing it differently from Jamie, to me, to Coach Macon. And so I definitely think, having a diverse staff and having somebody that is saying it different ways, y'all all have the same common goal, right? But you're all saying it a little bit different. They're going to be able to go out in the world and understand that everybody in the world is different as well. So
Thank you very much. I keep mixing up the coach and the first name, so hang with me here. Jesse, for you, when you think about diversity in the staff, sometimes as an assistant coach, and for you, you're the only assistant coach on the panel most recently. Do you think that there are things, if a institution who maybe doesn't have a lot of diversity in their coaching staff wants to bring in an assistant coach, what are some things that maybe a white head coach who's never had a different type of staff, can think of or can offer, just be aware of in the hiring process? Put you on the spot here a little bit, but you got this.
Yeah, you did. Whew, listen, that question was not on there, okay? I would say that it's like Coach Kat mentioned, like you have the same goal, and when you are bringing in qualified assistants, knowing that like they want the best for you as well, and so don't take it as competition or someone wanting to like step on your toes, because knowing that like at the end of the day, as a head coach, you get all the credit anyways, and a win is a win no matter how you get there. And so just being okay with, like for me as an assistant, like I want to do as much as I can for my head coach, and that way she's able to work on different areas that might be more important. And so just allowing me and the opportunity, the access to do that, and that way because at the end of the day, she still gets the credit, or he or she, sorry, but just being open to letting those qualified candidates that you hired do their job, because you hired them for a reason. You know what they bring to the table, and at the end of the day, it's going to help your program be better. So just understanding who you hired, why you hired them, and what you're trying to get accomplished for what you brought this person onto your staff is what I have.
You crushed it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Coach Jenkins, let's go to you. When you think about your student athletes really getting to know each other, right? How do you facilitate that process? And whether it's your junior college experience, your high school experience now, when you have kids from different areas, different backgrounds, different life experiences, how can they come together in a way that is positive and that is educational?
I feel like regular community service fills some of that, because it's not just a one shot, but it's going out and interacting with people and hearing and listening what your fellow player is saying while they're talking to that group too. So they're getting a real feel instead of just a canned answer straight back and forth. I also find it a big one. I love team trips, the overnight road trips, team trips. If you program in more than, okay, study, sleep. If you program in some opportunities, it gives them a chance to get closer to each other, away from the school setting. And so they can ask sometimes the hard questions come at 11:30 at night. The coach is not in the room. And that's where they figure out the yes and the no of how they really feel about themselves and the world. And sometimes seeing the difficulties that come with it too. In our sport, seeing a pitcher having to struggle because your number two got hurt and number one had to step up and pitch the whole weekend, and being able to connect to that on a one-on-one level. But the biggest part, those are my two things: try to do things together away from the school setting, and try to go on the quote unquote, we love to say, work trip, when it's a team building trip. At the same time, it's a work trip when you're going somewhere to play. Like I said, I love tournaments, but I don't jump into new schools a lot of times, especially in high school necessarily, and do an overnight trip, because I don't know if they're ready. I have to see them during the year. Sometimes it means coaching another sport. So you see them in another setting before I see that they're mature enough to go out there and then throw them together and let them work through things. So that's my take on that one.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Tarvin, coming back to you. What are your thoughts?
I would definitely say one thing, or some new things that we implemented this year, was For one, everybody did a family presentation, and I got this, or my coaching staff or myself probably got this from an NFCA when we went this year. I don't know who said it, so please give them credit when we find out who does. But the family presentations, everybody had a family presentation where they could make it however they wanted to. We got on a Zoom, they shared their screen, and they said, this is this person, and introduced whoever was a pivotal part in their life and why, and they steered it however they wanted to. Some of them had cahoots, some of them, did just different things. So we did that. And then I would say we were asking for communication in the fall, just on the field communication, and it wasn't happening. And so we realized they can't even communicate in their everyday life, let alone softball. And so one thing that we did do is after practice every day, we went numerical order. And so you knew your time was coming, but you had a topic that you could pick and you had to talk about it as a team for 5 minutes. So we all you could ask the team a question, you could ask whatever you wanted, whatever was on your mind, and you have to talk about it for 5 minutes. And some of the topics went way longer than 5 minutes. And then some of them were like, okay, this is kind of awkward, 5 minutes, so yeah, let's stop it. But you still figured out like what was on that person's mind, as well as everybody had some form of input. Coaches were involved, so they knew what we liked as well. So it's just really getting to know the person in general.
Thank you very much. Coach Perry, switching gears on the same question a little bit with you, and if you want to jump in on that one, you can. But also with administration, when you have differences in your administrative team and then also your coaching staff makeup and maybe even the makeup of your team, if we are really getting into this, a lot of times our administrators are maybe even less diverse than our coaches or some others. So how can you help an administrator in that very interesting power dynamic relationship get to know a little bit more, about you as a coach or about your team or your assistant coaches for that matter?
Fortunately, at Illinois and in the Big, there's a huge push towards diversity. I actually am participating in a trip to Selma that's sponsored by the Big Ten. And they're taking us, you can volunteer. We're going to go to Selma and go to the museums, walk the bridge, listen to speakers, and I'm super excited about it. It was an opportunity offered to one of my athletes last summer through the Big Ten conference, and she had an excellent experience. So, I'm waiting for that. And our athletic department actually is pretty diverse. Our AD, definitely looks to hire different sorts of people, and I think we benefit from that. So if you're in a situation, I've mostly been in spaces where that wasn't the case. I do think you have to, again, go to the human side, really appeal to the human side. Something that we do that maybe ties into how the question was answered earlier. When we're on the road, we actually, instead of maybe going to hit or field balls at the opposing team's institution, we'll go and do a community service project. So, we've gotten experiences where we've gone into elementary schools, some that are, pretty underprivileged, and that's exposure. We've gone to the YMCA, and that's exposure. And we've invited administrators on trips with us, and they've kind of gone into the schools, or we've gone into, there was a home for, young mothers, who had children. So, we've had administrators, participate with us on that level as well. So they get to see the players, they get to see, other dynamics. We do that a lot, along Big Ten country, Big Ten schools, Big Ten cities, so they're getting a chance to kind of maybe see different areas along with us at the same time. So, but I do think you have to be really intentional and active in your speech and your words and in your meetings with your admin, but then you can also put some action to it by inviting them and including them in your space.
Thank you very much. And Jesse, I didn't mean to skip over you on that one. I wanted to get your take too, probably more on the student athlete side, but by all means, feel free to go any direction you want. And the truly helping student athletes from different backgrounds to get to know each other, to understand each other, or coaches to get to know student athletes that come from very different places?
I think a lot of it starts with conversation. It's like they mentioned, how can you get them to play together if they don't know each other? And that comes with speaking to one another, having those different conversations, and kind of getting them involved in different interests. I know one thing that we did at Texas Southern is like we paired different players together that didn't know one another, and we asked them like why they're thankful for that person, and it had to go outside of softball. That way they kind of got to know them and form a relationship with them. I think relationships are important because if you don't have that, then we're not going to thrive anyways. But just finding different ways to incorporate their different interests, team bonding, like you mentioned, and just getting them to speak to one another, allowing them a space to be vulnerable. I think that is a big thing too. A lot of them aren't willing to be open because they don't feel safe. So just allowing them a space amongst themselves, amongst their teammates, amongst their coaches to be vulnerable and allow them to be open. And that way you kind of get what you're wanting out of them, and it's a win-win for everyone.
All right, I've got 2 questions left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read them both, and then we're going to go around the horn and you can answer either one. All right, so you can pick which one you want to answer. And then if I get any more in the chat here, I'll let you know. Question 1 is, how would you manage an incident where a coworker made a prejudice statement? Question 2 is, how do you enhance your understanding and knowledge of DEI? So you can do either one of those that you want to do. Coach Jenkins, let's have you go first, whichever one you want.
All right. I think I would go with the how do I expand my understanding of DEI in the high school setting here. I would try to look and see what's going on in the community, and then asking my administrators and reaching out to community members. I know there's a lot of history here in this part of the state, and I didn't grow up here. So I've had to try to reach out and see what are the things people in my new community here are dealing with as far as diversity and their day-to-day lives. This is an important part of the state for civil rights and things in that nature. But day to day, what do people still feel is still ingrained in place? What things do people feel like have improved? And what trickles or flows directly into our school system here, you know, from how the school day goes to how the kids act when it, you know, based on home situation and practice, and when you're trying to push them. Try to get an understanding, a feeling, because I've coached at so many different kinds of places with varying levels of diversity. Some of them where I might have been the only diversity in the whole athletic department or on the whole coaching staff, and others where there was a 50-50 mix, or more than 50-50, there was just a full mix of a lot of different people there. So trying to figure out what diversity equity means where I'm at by reaching out to the community, the school district, and the very campus I'm on, because I even have it a little different. I teach at the early college campus. So my kids are on an upper academic level there. And it doesn't look the same demographic wise on that campus as it does on the campus I coach at. So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's see. Jesse, how about you go next? Either one, whichever one you want. You remember them or you need a refresher?
No, I remember them. I remember them. I guess I'll go with the first one. I think that I would just correct them in the most thoughtful way that I can. I think prejudice comes from just people being unaware and just being ignorant. And so just use it as a teaching moment, because in doing so, you can create them to be an ally, and that way they're more understanding, and that way they can go on and teach someone else and use that example of how they were uneducated before, but they've been able to learn, and that way they can be able to also maneuver through spaces and show that, they aren't who they were before, and that they're learning, that they're being intentional with what they're learning, and truly showing that like they want to allow a space for diversity and inclusion, and, being an ally for someone who doesn't look like them.
That's a tough question. I appreciate you tackling that one. All right, let's see. We're going to go Kat, then Tyra. Either one you want to do.
All right. I'm glad you took that on, Jesse, because I was like, there's deep and then but no. So as far as and I think I am actually going to take that one on. I said, what exactly, like, did they, what I needed to know a little bit more, I guess you would say, because there's one way to, maybe you touch somebody's hair and then maybe you called them a crazy name. So I was like, where are we? So I definitely agree with what Jesse said, but I think that, the touching of someone's hair is just like, hey, you can't go around just grabbing people's hair to see how it feels and stuff like that. But the other, and this comes from experience, at Kennesaw, some of the girls thought that they were able to just rap a lyric that, basically rap the N-word, like it was just freely and everything was fine. And so I think that as a Black player, like the first thing you obviously want to do is go off and go to a space that your coaches wouldn't want you to go. But I definitely think that, having that conversation, if a player does go to you with that, not kind of belittling the situation, but being able to say, bring both parties in, maybe not together, but, explaining why and making it a very teachable moment and not being weird about it, being able to be uncomfortable, even if you are, because that's how you learn. So I definitely would say just being able to continue to talk things out and learn through experiences, for sure.
Well, thank you for taking that one on as well. It is difficult. This, I think, is the last question I have. Coach Perry, what do you got for us?
Well, I guess piggybacking off of Jesse and Kat with the tough question, if it's tough, what if that person is your boss? What if that person is, someone that it's a touchy way, it's difficult, what do you do? I think there's, again, a way to address anything. I think it's important that you do address those sorts of things in the moment. I think you have to use tact, because of just the way that sometimes, as a Black woman, as Kat kind of mentioned in one of her other statements, you're viewed, as angry in the first place. But a lot of it comes from what, in my space, just from the political climate and political conversations, and just making sure that you're navigating in a way of like, hey, what you just said about those Black people, you might, that might be me in some way that you just aren't aware of, or, my family member, just really trying to, I would say, bring things closer to home and make sure that if something is said that's kind of out of pocket, that you, try to give perspective on it of, hey, you're talking about those people, but those people that's me, that's also me. And would you show that sort of disrespect to me, and if they would, then that's something that you need to know, I would think, and need to handle directly. But yeah, but I do believe that there are different levels, of the, they all look alike, or the, touch my hair, or the, the N-word, versus all of those things. But be willing to address them, use perspective, use tact, and make sure that maybe you bring it closer to home, so that maybe some of those conceptual things that are said, that people realize that that's a human being that you're talking about. That's a real person. That person is like me.
Well, thank you, Coach, and thank you, coaches. I just was scrolling through any other questions and things we had. I think we got them all, and I really appreciate you coming on and your willingness to share your candor and letting us truly ask questions that so oftentimes our coaches, your colleagues, aren't sure where to ask or how to get the information. And so just having you as a leader in our industry and in our organization is really important, I know, to us as an association and also to your colleagues. So thank you so much for taking the time. For those of you that are on the call, we have another webinar coming up here shortly. Championship Roundtable should be a lot of fun, so be on the lookout for information on that. There are plenty of other webinars and things that you can get into. NFCA.org under the forums page. We have several conversations on social justice, race, and more. If you want to learn more, we want to continue to provide that for you. And if there's something else you want to tackle, don't be afraid to reach out. We would love to take it on for you. Until next time, this has been Joanna Lane, Senior Director of Education for the NFCA. And today's NFCA webinar presented by Rapsodo. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day.